Hi there, welcome to AI Python. This is lesson number 19 of Python tutorial for beginners series. In this video, you will learn everything about for loops in Python. For loops are preferred choice of iterative components when it comes to iterate over a fixed range or sequence of data. Using for loops, you can perform certain operations on each value of a given sequence one by one. You will learn to use for loop over various entities such as range, list, sets, tuple, dictionary in Python. After watching this video, you will be able to solve most of the problem related to for loops in Python. If you want to jump over to a specific topic of this video, then make use of content timestamp provided in the description of this video. So let's get into the agenda of this video, but before that, channel intro. And by the way, you can skip the intro if you don't like. Let's get started with the agenda for today's video. In this video, you will learn the key concept of for loop and how to use them in your Python program. What the syntax, how you can declare a for loop in Python, and what is the flowchart of a corresponding for loop. Then we'll move to a specific application, or you can say real world examples, where we'll learn how to apply for loop on a range, how to apply for loop on string, list, tuple, dictionary, etc. And finally, we'll also learn how you can use if-else inside a for loop, because there are certain situations where you want to determine the particular value is based on the particular value you want to make some decision, and you don't want to continue till the end of the loop. For that purpose, we'll be using if-else so that loop gets terminated or the desired output is achieved before scanning the complete loop. Alright, I hope you are set with the agenda. Let's get started and understand what is for loop. So for loop is an iteration type of control structure in Python which allows user to execute through a fixed sequence of data. So two things to remember here. Only it will work with fixed sequence if the sequence is not known in prior to executing for loop, and it iterates through each value of the range that you provide. I'll give an example of day-to-day application. That application is built in using for loop, and that is basically your playlist in any app, music app, right? These playlists have fixed set of songs or videos, right? This is also controlled using for loop. When you say play one by one or play the entire playlist, then it goes from one video to another video or one song to another song based on the fixed sequence available in the playlist. So the for loop will iterate through each of the song and play one after another. Okay, we'll look at the syntax and the flowchart of a for loop. Syntax means how you can use or how you can create a for loop in Python. So it's very simple. For is the keyword that you have to write, and then iterator name. Iterator is basically the element which keeps on updating on a fixed sequence, and you can give iterator at any name, right? And then in keyword, and then your sequence, whatever sequence you want to use. So for loop basically works on the sequence, and iterator will iterate through each value of that sequence, right? And then the colon should be there at the end of the for statement, and then in the next line after the indentation you write the code. Indentation is must, as we have seen in the if-else statement also. In case if you are not aware of if-else statement in Python, check out the video. You can find the link for that video in the I button displayed at the top right corner. Fixed sequence could be a range, stat, set, dictionary, tuple, string, or anything, and we will discuss each one of them in detail in this video. So you are going to learn all the key concept of for loop, applying a for loop in Python, and you will be very comfortable working with for loop in Python. The program enters a for loop and it checks for the last element. If this is the last element of the sequence, then exit the loop. If not, mostly in the first case it is not the last number, so you will start with the first number, and I is automatically, or the iterator is automatically take the first element of the sequence. Alright, so start with the first element and then continuously checks whether this is the end element or not. If it is not, then it executes the body of the loop and the iterator move to the next element of the sequence, and this goes on until this is the last element, and after executing the last element it will exit the for loop. Let's look at some of the real examples where for loop is being used and how you can use for loop. For example, on range in this case. So what is range basically? A range in Python is a function which creates a sequence of number as specified in the argument. If you provide a range, it's basically a function. If you provide range and with some argument, let's say 5 in this case, then it will generate a number starting from 0 to 4, not including 5, right? By default, the starting element is equal to 0 and end element is equal to 5, but end element is generally not included in the output of the range function. And equivalent of writing range 5 is range 0, 5, 1. So 1 and 0 are default. If you don't specify 0 and 1, it is taken as it is. The starting number would be 0 and incremental value is 1. So it starts with 0, goes up to 5 with an increment of 1, right? So range 5 and range 0, 5, 1 are same. Alright, we'll see some other example of range. Let's say you want to generate a number from 10, starting from 10, goes up to 20 with an interval of 2. When you provide range 10, 20, 2, it will start at 10, goes up to 20 but not including 20 with an increment of 2, right? Apart from defining a range in ascending order, you can also implement a range to be defined in descending order. In this case, range starts from 20, it goes till 16 but not including 16 with an decrement of -1, right? Or decrement of 1, right? It will start with, so the output will be 20, 19, 18, 17, and that's how 16 will not be part of the range. I hope you understand. Let me give you a quick demo of this range function. Print range and let's say 5. When you give 5 and execute it, it will give a range element. It will not give you the result. And if you want to get the result, what you can do is, if you are in interpreter, you don't have to write print. Instead, you can directly get the result, range and then 5. You will get result 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And we'll see one of the decrement example, like range 20, 16, -1. It will start with 20, goes up to 16 but not 16, and then I'm sorry, I have to give it a list range and then 20, 16, -1. All right, so this is how you got the number 20, 19, 18 and 17. I hope you understand about the range function. Now let's look at how you can use a range function in for loop. So let's consider this. You have been given a task to print all values from 0 to 10. What would be the simplest way to achieve this in Python is just by printing all of them line by line, one after another, right? This is simplest method if you don't know any looping concept. But generally it is not advisable. Although you can do that, there's no problem, but there are certain facilities provided by Python which will help you to make the things faster or even simpler. So we can achieve this using for loop. Created a for loop for I in range 11. So range 11 will produce a number from 0 to 10 excluding 11, and then it will print each number, right? Let me demonstrate this with Python. Okay, so I'll write for, this is the keyword, and then iterator. In this case I'm taking I. You can take anything. For I in, this is again keyword, and then range, whatever range. In this case I'm interested in printing from 0 to 10, so I'll give 11 as the range, and then colon. So this colon, and then hit enter, it will indent automatically, and then print I. Okay, save it and run it. You will see that it has generated a number from 0 to 10, and it has printed all the number starting from 0 all the way till 10. Alright, so this is how you can make use of for loop. Let's get to another example. In this case, we'll be working with a list. So in case if you're not aware of the list in Python, I've created a video on list. You can find the link for the same video and from the I button displayed at the top right corner of this video. Okay, let's go ahead with the list, and let's say we have a list called name num underscore list, which holds some number like 10, 15, 14, 6, 7 and 0. And all these numbers are placed at certain index. So index start from 0 and go all the way up to the length of element. Like it is 6, so it will go from 0 to 5. Alright. And we have been given a task to write a program in Python so that it can print each value of the list. So how we can do that? The simplest method would be through index method. You can print each value using the index. For example, num underscore list, and in the square bracket if you give 0, it will give the first element, right? And all the way down to the last element, which is num_list, and then in the square bracket 5, that will give you the last element. Alright, how we can print each value of the list using for loop? There are two methods, and you should know both of them. Why? Because in some of the cases you need to get the value through index, and sometime you can directly access the element. Alright, okay, so the first method we'll see is how we can use for loop with index method. You can write the index value using square bracket with the name of the list as shown here in the print function, and then you can get the particular value. So I will start with for I in range, and here I'm saying length of num list because prior I don't have the knowledge of length. Now at this moment you know the value of list, but generally you will not be aware of the length of a list, right? So you have to pass a function length, and length function you can pass an argument as num list. So it will give a value, it will return a value of 6. And when 6 is fed to range function will generate a number from 0 to 5. We wanted to access the list element through index, so we are following this approach. And then print num list, and whatever the index value is there, with the index value like 0 to 5, you can access all the list. The second way is you can access directly using for I in num list. So this is a prominent method and most frequently used method to access each element of the list using a direct method. So there is no range length num list is required. Directly you can write the num list, and I will be initialized with the first element, and it keeps on going until the last element. So for I in num list, print I. So this will print all the numbers starting from 10 to 0. Alright, let's quickly demonstrate it in Python. So let's say we already have a list which is num_list, and it holds the value same as displayed here, 10 to 0, right? So I wanted to print all the values of this list using index method in for loop, right? I write for as keyword, and then iterator name I, or you can choose anything. For I in, now you have to provide range, but what would be the range? How I can get the range? By using the length function, length of the num list, right? And close the bracket. So in this way you have created first line of the for loop, and then with the indentation you can print each value of num list using the iterator that you have defined, right? And when I save and run it, you can see you have got all the numbers from 10 to 0. This is the first way. The second way is simple way. I'll just delete everything, right? I don't have to define range or num list. So I'll simply write for I in num list, and here just replace everything with I, because I itself hold all the values. Okay. And then when I execute this, you can see the same number like 10 to 15, 10, 15, 14, 6, 7, and 0. This is the way you can get the number. As you can see here, all the numbers are printed in the separate line, right? But if you wanted to print all of them in the same line, you can simply tweak here. You can write comma and equal to, you can give comma here, right? So what it will do, by default this is set to new line /n, but here I wanted to specify that I want to separate each element with comma, and save it. Once you execute this, you will see all of them are printed in the same line separated by comma. Yeah, indeed there will be comma at the end also, but in case if you are interested, you can print like this. Okay, alright. Now we'll move on to the next example, and we'll learn how to work with a string in for loop, right? So a string is essentially a kind of list itself, because all the elements or all the words or text, whatever written in the double quote or single quote, is a kind of list itself, right? You can access them using the list method as defined earlier. So using index, you can access each individual element of a list. So for example, I wanted to print all the individual letters of this word, my string, which is holding aipython. I can do so by using index method, right? My_string, and then all the indexes, whichever you want. You start with 0 and all the way up to the length of the string. By using for loop, you can access each character of this string. So how you can do that? The same method applies here like a list. for I in range length and my string, so it will check the length of my string, which will be 8 in this case, and then this 8 is passed to range. Range will define a value from 0 to 7, and then each element will be printed. And you can use another method which is for I in my string and print I. So this will also print each character of the string one by one, right? So this is how you can use for loop to iterate over a string. We'll move on and to check how you can use for loop with tuples, right? Okay, so what is tuple basically? In case if you're not aware of tuple, you can watch out the video, and the link is given in the top right corner of this video right now. And it is basically collection of element but not mutable. For more information you can check out the video. Similar to list, we can also access each element of the tuple using index method, which is like my underscore tup index, which is in the square bracket 0 to 4 here, right? So you can print each element, and at the same time you can also apply for loop to access each element of this tuple using the index method, that is for I in range length of my tuple and print tuple, and then in the square bracket index, right? It will give you each element of the tuple one by one. Another way is same, like for I in my tup print I. These two for loop will give you the same result. It depends on how do you want to apply them in the Python code. Now we'll see how you can work with set. Set are basically collection of unique elements, so there is no redundancy. I have also prepared a video on set with Python. You can check out the video from the description. Let's say my set is holding this number 13 AI in Python and basic, right? Do you think you can access these elements using index? No, because set elements are not organized as per the index. So if you write my set and square bracket 0, you won't get the result. It will be like error. There will not be any result because it doesn't follow the indexing mechanism. So this will not work. So that's only one way to access all these elements is using the second method, which is for val in set, because access the element using index, rather it hold all the element in the memory and print each element one by one without index, right? Now comes dictionary. Dictionary is also one of the popular data structure in Python, and it is getting more and more popular in these days. Okay, so we'll learn how to access dictionary element using for loop. Alright, so what is dictionary? Basically it's stored key pair value, and multiple key pair value are stored. In this example I have taken my dict as a dictionary name, which holds January, February, March as a key and 1, 2, 3 as a value. Alright. So in case if you wanted to get all the keys, you can use function mydict.keys. It will give you all the keys, which is in this case January, February and March. If you wanted to get all the values from a dictionary, you can use mydict.values, and you can get all the values, only values, not the key. In the first case you are getting only key, in the second case you are getting only values. But if you want both keys and value, you can use items. So in items will give you a tuple output of key and value inside a list. Alright, so this is how you can get all the key values pair. There's also another method where you can access the value by giving a key. How you can do that? Write the dictionary name, and then in the square bracket you can provide the key. The corresponding value will be obtained. In this way you can get the value of a particular key. Okay, as you have seen that we can access key separately, value separately, and key value pair as a whole, right? So we have three methods, or you can apply three different for loop to access each key, value or whole element. But it is all three different way. You can apply whichever is suitable for your application. So I'll discuss all of them here. So let's go start with the first one, which is in order to access only the key, you can write for key in mydict, and here key should be anything. It is not like you have to write key only. It's an iterator. You can use anything. I itself you can write. So for key in mydict print key, it will give you all the keys element, all the key of the dictionary. And in case you wanted to get the value, by providing the key. So for val in mydict, print mydict in the square bracket the key. Whatever key is there, the corresponding value will be displayed, because we are interested to find the values. So first will give you the key, second will give you the value. Now in case if you wanted to get both keys and value, then you can use for key val. This is also one of the important things that you are noticing for the first time. You can pass multiple iterator if the structure provided by you supports them. For example, mydict and dot items support key value pair. So key and value are the separate thing in items, and they are separated by comma. So you can access both of them together and write for key comma value in mydict dot items, the bracket, because it's a method which will return key value pair, and then print key comma value. Let me show it through an Python example. So let's say we have a dictionary which is mydict and which is holding key value pair as Jan 1, Feb 2, March 3, right? So I can access key of these element using for keyword, and then key, or you can write key for key in mydict. Alright, print key, right? It will print all the keys. When you enter, you can see Jan, Feb and March. These are the key which you got. Now let's say we wanted to have values. So how can you get the values of this element using for loop? Let everything remains as it is. Just change this one like mydict, because you wanted to get the values, and if you pass key in the square bracket to the dictionary, you will get the values, right? If I run here, I'll get the value 1, 2, 3, right? This is how you get key and value. Now if you wanted to get all of them, like key and value as a pair, then you have to pass two argument, key and value. Okay, don't confuse. Let's say for simplicity, I'll use I and j. I will be key and j will be value. I and j in mydict dot items, and this is the method. When you call this method, it holds key pair value as shown here, and now you are operating on this one, and here you will write simply I comma j, and the value will be available. And when you execute this, you will see Jan 1, Feb 2, March 3, and this is the way, all these three ways through which you can access key value or even key value pair. Alright, so this will be the last topic, and in this one you will understand how you can use if else inside a for loop. Okay, let's say we have a list which is num underscore list holding the same value, or 11, 15, 14, 6, 7, 0, whichever we have used earlier, and now I wanted to check if the current value, whatever is I'm iterating through, let's say I'm starting from 11 and going to till 0, right? I have to check if for every value, if the current value is less than 10, if it is less than 10, then print that current value is less than 10, or if it is not less than 10, then print the value is greater than 10, right? This is simple function, and here we are using if else inside a for loop. So for loop will keep on iterating from one element to another element to another element till the last, and for each element we will be checking whether the current element is less than 10 or greater than 10. So I'll quickly show you through a Python example. Let's say we have a list num underscore list which is holding this value, and I have to create a program where it will check whether the current value is less than 10 or greater than 10. Simple. Okay, so we'll start with for I in num list. Alright, so I'm iterating from first element till the last element, and at the same time I will check. In order to use if statement, you have to take care of the indentation. You have to start if else statement after the indentation, right? So I'll write if. So I'm comparing the current value. I is less than 10. Then print the current value is less than 10, right? Or in a much modified way, you can write the current value, which is, you can pass this using special formatted string, and you have to write f and then pass the current value, which is I, and you can say the current value is less than 10, right? And then here I'll say else. If it is not, then I'll copy the same thing and paste it here. Make sure that if and else both are aligned in the same alignment, right? And I'll say the current value I is here more than 10, right? This is the simple statement, and we wanted to print it throughout the list. Let me make you understand this example once again. the loop will start with the first element, which is 11, and it will check with this 11 is less than 10. If it is less than 10, then print this value. If it is not less than 10, then it will print a value which is greater than 10. Okay, let me execute this code and we'll see the result. And as you can see, the current value 11 is more than 10, 15 is more than 10, 14 is more than 10, and 6 is less than 10, 7 is less than 10, 0 is less than 10. This is how you can write if-else statement inside a for loop. Alright, I hope you understand. This was really a long video, and I hope after watching this video you have understood what is for loop in Python and how the syntax and how you can use for loop with list, set, tuple, string and dictionary, as well as how you can use if-else statement inside a for loop. So that's it for this video. I did my best effort to explain every content of this video. If you still have certain questions, suggestions or even feedback, then please write them in the comment section. We will happy to answer all your queries. Keep learning and keep growing.